Jesus Christ. Well, guys, I've had my YouTube channel for about a little over a day now, and I've already had 2 people comment and ask about the hotbox. But if you multiply that by about 1,764 across other social medias, TikTok, then you get a good idea of how many people have been pestering me to see the hotbox. So I figured today would be a good day to come out to the shop and show you guys how to build a katana. I know, I'm annoying. I'm not ready to break into the hot air forge yet. It's actually the second box that I've built and it works phenomenally, and I'll be going over that in the future. But today, it's a good day to make a katana. So, let's just get into it. Okay, so after picking some stuff up and getting things out of the way and putting things where they'll be in the way later, I have a nice clean work table. So basically for this, I'm going to be using this long piece of red oak. It's 3/4 inch thick. You can get this at Home Depot, any hardware store. And then I decided that I would also be using this piece of bacote. This you cannot get at hardware stores. I got this from an old guy out in the woods. Don't ask. So this is going to be the handle overlay, which is going to cover the tang, and this is going to be the blade and the full tang. I haven't decided how long I want to make it yet. I just wanted to point out real quick that when it comes to katanas, I don't know if by definition a katana has to be curved. The original one that I made is curved. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm pointing that out because I'm curving it, it's going to take up the whole entire piece. That's fine, but just keep that in mind if you plan on making one. There will be a little bit of waste if you want to make it curved. As far as tools that you'll need, a jigsaw for cutting out the length of wood. You don't really need it. You could do it by hand and then file down to get the parameters that you want. But I have a jigsaw, so I'm going to use it. This thing's been with me for a long time. It's been through a lot. It's a little banged up and bent. I really need a new one, but I kind of like it. I don't know if I'm going to be getting rid of this guy anytime soon. I'll probably go buy one tomorrow. And the second thing that I'm going to be using is a oscillating belt sander. This thing you don't need. It's kind of like one of those tools that is a little more expensive than what you would just go out and buy, but it can do so many things. I have used this for an unbelievable amount of things. It's come in handy for so many projects. If I had known how much I was going to use this thing, I would have got one the day I started doing projects and stuff. I probably would have got a nicer one than this. When I built this table, I actually built it so that this is completely flush, so that I can take pieces of wood and things and have it be completely flat as I'm standing, which is going to come in handy for this project. So now that that's all out of the way, you can get to the build part. Oh, I forgot to mention, probably the most important thing if you plan on making this curved, like this one is, a yardstick, aluminum preferably, or something really thin that will bend but not hold the bend. Reason being is because I'm going to use this to actually make a curve so that I can trace out the curve of the blade and get a nice even curve without like doing it by hand, or I just found that this is the easiest way. It was the same technique that I used for making the bow press. I'll be doing a video on this too, but for now, just know that when it comes to making curves, get you one of these. Alright, so let me just try to explain what I just did here. So basically I have these two pieces of wood clamped onto my table here. The reason for that is just to hold this guy like anchoring points. My original plan was to draw both of the lines that would identify the thickness of the blade and then cut both of those lines, but I changed my mind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the first line and get rid of this piece of wood. I'm just going to use a guide to measure. After I cut this out and get this perfect, I'm going to use a guide to measure 1 inch. That way I have a guideline using the edge of this blade here. Curved blade, handle's going to be perfectly straight with this laminated on top. Once I get this cut out, I'll be able to draw the second piece and get the rest of this wood cut out. Alright, well, I lost a bunch of footage because my camera wasn't recording for some reason. But basically, I cut that line out, and this is what we're left with. This curved piece of wood that looks like maybe you could hit somebody with it, or you could probably even like paddle your way to China or something. So I followed that line with the jigsaw, and what I'm gonna do is go ahead and clean this up, get this line nice and flush. That way I can take it. I don't really know what this tool is called, but it's good for tracing. So I'm just gonna hold my finger like this and trace a line down once this is nice and smooth and clean and doesn't give me splinters underneath my fingernail. And yeah. Alright, so now that that's done, we have a nice clean line. I don't know if you can see that. Nice good curve there. Now, take my pencil. This is 1 inch, so I'm just going to measure 1 inch and then trace that line using my finger as a stop against the wood. I don't know how this is going to work out. It might not be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. I can guarantee it, but it's whatever. That'll do. Alright, so if you guys are following along and you happen to be going the belt sander route, there's two things that you have to keep in mind when using the belt sander if you plan on having a curved blade. So the first thing is that when you're doing the inside of this curved piece of wood, you can't just put it flat against the sander because there's a little space. What will happen is these two edges will dig into the wood more than this space. This won't even touch the sandpaper. So you actually have to only use one side, which makes it difficult because this wants to dig in and cause all kinds of divots. So to help with that, if you saw what I was doing, is basically you're just going to continually move this along. That way it's never sitting in one part of the wood for too long and cutting into it. It might help if you use a lower grit sandpaper, but I don't believe in low grit sandpaper. So go ahead and compromise with that in any way you see fit. The other thing to keep in mind is that I forgot, so we're gonna skip that, and then if I remember, I'll come back to it. I had to go inside and put a sweater on because for some reason I am freezing. I don't think there's any reason for me to be this cold, but I'm like so cold for some reason. I think I need some iron. Spinach. Alright guys, so basically this is what we're left with after all of the cutting and sanding. If you couldn't tell, This is the part that's on this side, and this is the part that's going to be the handle. So from here, basically all we have to do is find the center line down the straight edge of this piece of wood and bevel the wood just as if it was any other sword, like you would with metal, and then laminate the handle and glue it, and then we'll have to wait until that is dry to work on it anymore. So let's go ahead and draw a line down the center of this and then bevel it out. I'm gonna use this thing again. It's 3/4, so half of 3/4 is this line right here. One and a half tooths, half of 3/4. So I'm gonna bring it over there and grind away at it. All right, so I've rounded the back. Looks actually pretty good. Now I'm going to thin out the tang so that I can laminate pieces of wood onto it. And then we will glue it up, and that will be it for today. All right, here's the glue up. I'm gonna be frank with you guys. I know that that was a little shabby. I didn't glue every single surface that it's touching. I don't really care. All of the seams are going to be covered with something. I'll probably do a little tiny leather piece around it or something. I also mentioned earlier that I was probably going to bevel this, and I didn't. It's too late for that. I'll just sand it and leave it as it is. It's about all I feel like doing today. So thanks for tagging along, guys. If you feel like sticking around, go ahead and subscribe. Once the glue's all dry, we can get started on part 2 of this katana. But for now, a big giant thanks, and I will talk to you later.